dark or blue. Don't let us hang around this town and let what others say come true. We're just good for nothing, they all figure. A boy's grown up shiftless jigger. Now we get home.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Darker Than Blue here in Washington, D.C. You are listening to me, Jackie Luqman, on the mighty and powerful WPFW-FM in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It is Friday, December 20th. We are literally days away from Christmas, from the holidays. I hope that you all are doing some holiday things. I hope that you all are setting up your Christmas trees, or you're trying to start to do your Christmas dinner shopping, or whatever you do, Kwanzaa, if you celebrate another holiday, if you're preparing for any festive celebrations, I really hope you are. Because, man, if we don't need this good feeling these days right now, I don't know when we need them. We need that good feeling badly right now, because I don't know about you all. It's difficult. It's hard. It is really difficult to watch the news. It's difficult to listen to it. It's difficult to hear the updates a year later. And we know that the death toll in the Middle East is nowhere near that 5-number figure. We understand it's closer to 6. And here we are at the end of the year, and we're looking at the continuation of this horrific genocide. And at the same time that we're looking at what is supposed to be like a lame duck period in the Biden administration, the last year, the last few months, the last few weeks now of the Biden administration. And man, none of this that's going on seems like it's a lame duck period to me. But you know what? I talk about this all the time. You hear me talking about it all the time. I figured tonight we need to get some help to come in and talk about what Biden is doing in this alleged lame duck period that we need to be paying attention to. And I'm so happy to be joined tonight by my friend, comrade, and brother, Anthony Rogers Wright, who I have joined several times on his show here on WPFW, but he is joining me tonight. Anthony, thank you so much for joining. Glad to have you. Tell everybody where they can hear you when you're not here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sister Jackie. It's good to have some benevolent reciprocity, as I like to call it. And thank you so much for joining me on my program right here on the mighty WPFW Full Spectrum, which airs at 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings in the DMV and around the world. And that's where folk can find me on Tuesdays. And, it's been a great, I can't believe how fast it's gone. A great 6 months. Definitely looking forward to, what more we're going to do in the new year in 2025. And of course, it's just a real pleasure and honor to be here with you in some very, very interesting times. Like right before I came on with you, listening to this Shakespearean tragedy known as the U.S. House of Representatives debating whether or not our government is going to be open, which shuts down in less than 8 hours, unless they, come to their senses. But and then, of course, to your point about, we may have to change the question from where's Waldo to where's Biden, because throughout this Mishegas, we have not heard a word from him. We have heard more from the president-elect and his I guess what we'll call him his side king, billionaire Elon Musk, than we have from the sitting president of the United States. So very interesting times indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even as we were waiting for our cue to begin, our audio as our theme song was playing, I was like listening to the news update just at the beginning of this show, and just kind of thinking of the things that they were saying, like we're watching the continuation and the expansion of this genocide into Lebanon now. So this myth, this fictional thing of Eretz Israel is taking place with the military, with and by military I do mean literal troops on the ground, boots on the ground in the region of US military personnel helping the Israeli occupation force ethnically cleanse and genocide people to steal the rest of their land to carry out or to establish this Eretz Israel, this greater Israel. And by the way, I just want to be really clear, folks, as we kind of step through all of the things we have to say in this hour. Like, I'm not saying hateful things because I have a problem. No, my brother is a Jew, and I am telling you exactly what he would say. This Eretz Israel business is it is a made up thing. It's not anything that exists in any piece of documentation, spiritual or otherwise, that legitimizes this idea that there is this thing called the state of Israel that straddles three different existing states, that they are literally killing people to steal their land from them in order to establish this made up thing called Eretz Israel. And while all that is going on, Anthony, these people are talking about shutting the government down. And at the same time, Joe Biden, in his alleged lame duck period, I thought the lame duck period was supposed to be, we don't know what they're doing. They're packing up their stuff. We're not hearing from them. They're putting their stuff in the U-Haul van. Right. But instead, Biden is doing all of this stuff. He's done those 1,500 clemency orders that were a mess.
1,501.
Right. There was a problem with apparently now there is an issue with the justice Democrats or the environmental group getting the money that was promised them.
We'll get into that.
All of this is happening at the same time. And here we are on Darker Than Blue, as we do every Friday, trying to analyze all of this stuff for you while we're trying to maintain our sanity in our personal lives, because we analyze this and organize around these things every day. And by the time we get on this show, Anthony, we can't even remember half of the things that we just organized around and did political education on and were shocked at. And it's a lot. And so I say all of that before we get into this conversation, folks, to tell you, dear listeners, that what you get here on Friday afternoons, Friday evenings, while you're driving, you're sitting in traffic. I know you are. I am so sorry. You're sitting in traffic, driving from your job. You're probably driving to the store that you don't want to go to now to get prepared for the holidays. What you get on Darker Than Blue is a level of not just engagement, but a level of analysis that we can only carry out if we are personally involved and ideologically committed to getting the analysis right, so that our people who otherwise are just being lied to by corporate media, so that our people can know the truth and understand their place in the truth. That's what we do on Darker Than Blue. That's what Anthony does on his show. You're not going to find this kind of analysis anywhere else on anybody else's radio stations. We are in pledge drive. Tomorrow, I believe, is the last day of our winter pledge drive. So let me look at the board real quick. I've got a $400 goal for this hour. We've got about 51 minutes to hit that goal. I know we can do it because we've done it before. Y'all have done this before. And this time around, it is even easier. You have more ways to pledge. So how can you do that? Let me tell you. You can, you can pledge by calling uh uh, uh goodness, 202-588-9739, 202-588-9739. You can also pledge by going to the website wpfwfm.org/pledge. You can cash app $WPFWFM. Many ways to pledge. Please call now. $400 goal for this hour. We've got 50 minutes to hit that goal. Anything you can support Darker Than Blue and WPFW with, we would be so thankful, because just like everything else, WPFW is in the midst of a lot going on. We just upgraded our signal and our equipment, producing the signal so that we can better respond to, remember all of those attacks that we had? All of that stuff. We've improved our security, and we're preparing. We're in the middle of an actual physical move from one studio to another studio. So we need your help. 202-588-9739, website WPFWFM.org, or Cash App $WPFWFM. Anything you can support us with, we are appreciative of. Call us now. 49 minutes to do it. So, Anthony, what the devil is going on, comrade? What is happening with this alleged lame duck administration? Why are the Democrats coming out and basically saying the same thing that Republicans have been saying about why the Democrats lost? Why come the Democrats are now like, oh, the problem was we went too woke? What is happening?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, there's a lot happening. Let's start with what's happening right now, not too far from where you are, Comrade Jackie, and to the earlier points that you made. It should be noted that it was easier for Democrats and Republicans to come together to fund genocide than it is for them to come together to fund the people's government. And I think that that's extremely significant, because it does really show where the priorities of these so-called lawmakers are and who they are serving. They're certainly not serving us. They are serving the Zionist industrial complex, which has managed, to some of your points, to literally scare the Environmental Protection Agency from funding environmental justice organizations, some who are waiting to learn if they're going to get as much as $50 million so that they can carry out the work of our comrades in the Gulf South, in the Southwest, and in California, who are facing, of course, many attacks to their public health and their livelihoods through fossil fuel expansions. We also know that somehow, while Biden is nowhere to be found on this and funding the people's government, in the last 2 weeks, he has sent $850 million more dollars of the people's money to this feckless, windless, fossil-fueled war between Ukraine and the Russian Republic. And finally, we also know that Biden met on Monday with AI and tech cryptocurrency pirates to consider using what's known as the Defense Production Act, which basically would allow tech sensors to be exempted from pollution requirements, open up federal lands for them to be built on, and give them primary access to existing energy sources. So there's been a lot that Biden has been doing. It just hasn't been anything that benefits and serves poor and working class people of all races and all ethnicities. And that's where we stand now, basically at this point, where a tweet from a South African apartheid supporting white supremacist billionaire can impact the acts of Congress more than the president of the United States. So that's basically, what's been happening. And then, of course, we're hearing, and you've heard it as well, I mean, even from so-called progressives, like the the false use of the term identity politics, and we know what that really means. Like, oh, we lost because of identity politics. Just recently, Rahm Emanuel, Barack Hussein Obama's former chief of staff, literally wrote in the Washington Post about 3 or 4 days ago that he said, our language and priorities have reinforced the quote unquote aloof elite stereotype, with inflation stinging, school absenteeism skyrocketing, and students' academic scores plummeting. Democrats consume themselves in debates over pronouns. We know that's code for throwing trans folk under the bus.
Yep.
Bathroom access, also code for throwing trans folk under the bus. And renaming schools, which is code for let's keep schools named after literal white supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
And adopted terms such as quote unquote care economy. And as if that is a bad thing, and so his analysis is not just with him alone, right? It is also, we've heard it from even Bernie Sanders, who said we got to let go of identity politics. Doesn't even know what the term means. But the irony is in the abject hypocrisy, because on the one hand they'll say let go of identity politics, and then on the other hand, almost immediately they'll say things like suburban moms. We know what that means. Soccer moms. We know what that means. And so-called white working class people. So, I mean, it's just the Democrats really right now are continuing this trend of what, our dear brother Glenn Ford said many years ago, and captured in the beautiful book, The Black Agenda, that was, of course, edited by our dear sister and the greatest editor of the Black Agenda report, Margaret Kimberly. And this is back in the 90s, right? He said, we are witnessing the final dissolution of both the Democratic Party and established Black leadership formations as effective agents of domestic social change and world peace. Corporate power has swallowed the party whole and is smothering or absorbing the residue of what was once a powerful Black people's movement. So, and that's what's going on. I mean, the Democrats, as I like to say, they are swinging to the right and they are swinging to the white, and that's where, and that's or further to the right, I should say, because they've been pretty right from our vantage point for some time, and now they're just really completing the process of elite capture that started when in '92 when Bill Clinton embraced Reagan neoliberalism and Barack Obama put Reagan neoliberalism in blackface.
Yeah, I mean, I continue to, and I think with the coming year, if we all survive to see it, because who knows these days? You can't take anything for granted anymore.
Absolutely.
I agree with our comrade and sister Erica Ryan, or Erica Keynes, who says all the time the 90s is a grossly understudied period of time in American political history. And I do think that with the coming year, I am going to focus on looking at some of the legislation that came out of the Bill Clinton administration.
Oh my goodness.
Because the Democratic Leadership Committee and third way politics, oh my gosh, people do not understand the importance of that organization and that strategy to where the Democrats are now, and why they don't listen to us anymore, and why they go to the that they pursue the right, and now they're not even pretending that they're progressive. They're just flat out saying, yeah, we're not going to do anything for anybody who makes an issue about the unique way that they and people like them struggle in this finance capital, a dictatorship of finance capital. That's what they're saying, Anthony. When people, and I honestly don't care who it is who says this. I don't care if it's folks who are Democrats or Republicans or people who call themselves progressives, or the alleged progressives who are actually right-wing opportunists who are always dragging folks over to the right because, like, oh, we need to organize with it. I don't care who says, oh, we need to get away from identity politics. Whenever someone says that, I know they don't know anything about the history of a struggle for Black liberation, and particularly for Black women and queer people, because identity politics is a specific way to analyze the different ways or the connected ways that different groups of marginalized people are oppressed in the same way. That literally is what it means. It is how we connect with other oppressed people by looking at the ways, yes, we are oppressed in different ways. Absolutely. Working class white people are definitely oppressed in this system.
100%.
Working class Black people are oppressed in different ways. It's not that white people are not oppressed. Sure, they are. Under capitalism, working class white people are. But identity politics helps us understand that even though all working class people are oppressed under capitalism, working class Black people are oppressed in a different way than working class white people are oppressed. And working class queer people are oppressed in a different way than working class Black people are. And guess what? There are Black folks within that group of queer people who suffer from compounding oppression.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then you've got the woman issue. You've got working class white women who receive a different kind of oppression than working class white men receive, right? And then the queer people within that group of people get an extra kind of oppression. And so dude, I feel like I have to explain this in the most elementary terms I possibly can, so that the people who are listening to us right now, Anthony, when they hear these politicians say things like, we need to get away from identity politics, they can finally be equipped, or at least finally have something else to draw upon that causes them to say, wait a minute, why do you have a problem with identity politics so much? I don't think you know what it means.
No, they don't. And let's be clear. We do not, as comrades and revolutionaries and students of the Black radical tradition, we do not resort to identity reductionism or pigmentation politics, right? That we don't do that. And I got to give Comrade Ajamu props for that phrase. He said to make sure you know how he is. But at the same time,
I was about to hop on that, like, pigmentation politics.
It's beautiful. It's no, we're gonna plagiarize that for sure. But I mean, it just goes back to, I was out in Western Nebraska, right? People who are like now MAGA, and talking to them about some of as exactly what you were saying. I mean, the oppressions that come from corporations, in their case, big agriculture, which is just wreaking havoc on their way of life, the public health, and their ability to make a living without having to essentially be captured in the vertical integration. Basically what Amazon does with everything, that's what big ag does with agriculture. And it was a white comrade, and he's like, yo, I'm going to show you something. And takes me to his office, and he had like a whole wall that was dedicated to Jesse Jackson's 1988 campaign, right? And so that was so instructive to me, because here was a brother Jesse who in '88 really took the nation by storm, because white rural folk were also on board that Jesse train. And Jesse was absolutely talking about racial justice, but he was also talking about economic warfare of capitalism against poor and working folk. So obviously, like, he was able. He had more success with white rural folk than Bernie did with a lot of urban Black and brown folk. And that's just got to be named, which is not a knock on Bernie, but it's just to say that. And we also know, I mean, of course, Jesse is from Chicago, which produced, one of the greatest organizers. That he was so great they had to kill him, and Fred Hampton, who of course also was rolling with proud, quote unquote, white rednecks, the Young Patriots. And obviously Fred was talking about racial justice. He was a Black Panther, for goodness sake. So, that argument really just doesn't hold water. And the Democrats find themselves in a conundrum, because like we know in this election they lost more Black, brown, indigenous, and yes, poor white folk than they have in a couple generations, like since like the 60s, really, since like Nixon, and ran for president the second time. And so they're walking a big tightrope right now. I mean, we know that there's always going to be Negroes who won't leave the plantation. Harriet couldn't get them all to follow her, and we can't either. Some are like, I'm just going to stick on the DNC plantation in the big house, and I'm not going to follow you. But there are more, especially the younger folk, who are like, hold on a second. You constantly say to us, we're your most important voting bloc. You need us to save democracy. But then at the same time, I mean, even after the election of Biden, it did not take long for police to get more funding, right? It was like literally like right after we put him in office, many of our people held their noses and said, fine, I'm going to do this to save democracy. Then comes the Inflation Reduction Act, which absolutely sacrificed Black, Brown, Indigenous, and poor white communities, especially in the Gulf South, where he opens up the Gulf of Mexico to 600 million acres of it to oil and gas leasing, which exacerbates 600 million acres. 60 million acres for the next 10 years. That is baked in, open up for oil and gas leasing. So, I mean, they are in massive trouble right now. And I think they're having an identity crisis, or maybe they're not having an identity crisis. Maybe they're having an identity realization and simply, just getting emboldened, right? I mean, people like to talk about this Overton window. I kind of reject that phrase, but the Overton window also includes, many Democrats being like, well, Trump and them are being open about their white supremacy. Maybe we should start too. It worked for them. Maybe it'll work, for us. But I don't think that their calculus really. I think it underestimates. They just believe. Oh, Ralph Nader was saying this back in 2020. Saying to Black folk, where else are you going to go? Well, we will find other places to go. We have found other places to go. You and I found other places to go in this past election. So it's a very interesting thing to watch. And what I will say though is that, like, my estimation is there were two consecutive men of color who headed the DNC, Tom Perez, who was, of course, Obama's labor secretary, very interesting cat. And then most recently, as I like to call him, the curious case of Jamie Harrison. You're right. But you're not going to see another Black or brown person lead that party for at least 8 to 10 years, just like you're not going to see a Black, brown, or Indigenous person on the top of that party's ticket in the next 2 election cycles.
Right.
You can mark that down. That is not going to happen. I don't care. Everybody's talking about, Kamala's going to run again in 2028. Even if she did, she would not make it out of the primary, anyway. And we all know what comes next. So the question really becomes that, like, as Black folk who are in solidarity, as you have been noting, with poor and working class people of all races, of all the ethnicities, what are we going to do? Because, I mean, you already hear the rhetoric in some of these political circles. Oh, all we got to do is get a few Democrats elected in 2026 to the House, and that's going to result in some sort of transformative change. When we know the fact of the matter that's not what's going to happen. This pendulum keeps swinging. It's time to just pull the pendulum off and all together and build something new together. And I do think that, like, next time around, we had some mishaps with third-party candidates this last election cycle.
Don't stop tempting me.
I'm sorry. But I'll just say that I think that hopefully we've learned some lessons and we're ready to make some noise in 2026 and 2028, and that's on us.
Yeah, real quick. I'm checking my pledge tally. Where are y'all? What are y'all doing? I know y'all are out, you're busy, you're shopping and things, but aren't y'all enjoying this conversation? You should be, because we are having a great time having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Listen, give us a call here at WPFW. Please support Darker Than Blue, 202-588-9739. Or you can donate at online, WPFWFM.org. You can send a pledge via Cash App, $WPFWFM. And that's right, I forgot last time. You can donate.
The text option.
Yeah, you can donate by text now. You can text to WPFWFM, all one word, to 801-801. Again, text your pledge to WPFWFM to 801-801. $400 to go still, folks. We've got 31 minutes to get there. I absolutely know we can. So
I believe so. We can do it.
Anthony, why don't the Democrats get rid of these terrible people like Rahm Emanuel? Like, I get that they are committed to neoliberalism, right? You and I understand why like, this isn't an accident. They're not looking at Rahm Emanuel and saying, well, yeah, we are not sure why people don't like you. But okay, go ahead and speak for the whole party about what our strategy is going to be. It's the same kind of. I think their penchant for going to the worst people in their party to be their spokespeople, people like James Carville. I get that he is a strategist. People like Jamie Harrison. People like Perez. Like, these are terrible people, and progressives have figured out that they're terrible people, and they figured out why, because of their terrible neoliberal policies. People like Rahm Emanuel and Arnie Duncan like to work with people like Betsy DeVos, who is a complete Republican, complete I hate public schools, and this was going on under Obama, right? So if the Democrats want to win, and by win, I think we need to qualify what that means, because I think people don't understand what it is the Democrats want to win. But if they want to win, why do they keep going to these terrible people to speak for them when they know that the people who could keep them in office basically forever hate these people?
Right. Well, I mean, what you have here is simply a consultant class that refuses to let go of the influence and the power and their, six-figure, sometimes seven-figure checks that they get. Even right after the election, you saw this consultant class basically, trying to legitimize what they did and didn't do. Right? They said Harris ran a perfect campaign. It was a perfect campaign, because they were the ones that were advising her to do things like not let Palestinians who were still going to endorse her even speak at the DNC. That was a perfect campaign. It was a perfect campaign to basically publicly chastise, and look like she was enjoying it, chastise Palestinian activists and anti-genocide accomplices. I'm speaking now, and just kind of like, staring them down as if she had made a point. She was advised to do that. Even when she would read at her rallies, she never spoke genuinely about this genocide happened and ethnic cleansing in all of Palestine. She would be reading from a little card on the podium of these poll-tested remarks that were not going to piss off their Zionist handlers, and also try to appease the people. And you saw people falling for it. Even Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, she's working tirelessly for a ceasefire. They're still bombing Gaza at AOC. What are you talking about? But then even when you look at the sort of the Progressive Caucus, the Congressional Progressive Caucus released they only had like 6 bulleted points for their demands for the next DNC chair. And it's just really funny because they say reinstate the 2008 DNC ban on corporate PAC donations and specifically push to ban super PAC spending in Democratic primaries. Just call it AIPAC. Just say AIPAC. Because that's what we're all talking about here. AIPAC took out 2 of your more popular Black progressive lawmakers, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. Not perfect, but popular, at least with the progressive wing of the party. But you're never going to say AIPAC, right? Or make significant financial reforms that bring transparency to the DNC budget. Y'all have super delegates. What in the world is a super delegate? Yeah, there is no transparency and whatnot. And this is my favorite. This is them trying to pretend oh no, we're not gonna throw people under the bus. Undertake an immediate assessment of the effectiveness of democratic political consulting practices and businesses, and terminate those who have been ineffective and detrimental to the success of our candidates and party. That's all of you. You have to fire yourselves. And then my favorite part is expand the diversity of DNC consulting partners. So we'll go find the bootlickers who agree with us down in Brazil and focusing on bringing in more consultants to have a demonstrated understanding of populist policies that benefit poor and working class people of every race and geography. And so they're not serious.
No.
I mean, and that's why this continues happening. You literally had them interviewing Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton went and did after the election and was like, y'all don't understand what happened. And we promised the Palestinians the world and Arafat messed it up. That wasn't our fault. You know, like still lecturing the on the most documented genocide in our lifetime, and it's still going, you know, and so and I even heard another one saying that the best thing that could happen for the Palestinians, this is a Democratic consultant, is if Trump reinstates the Abraham Accords. You know, which essentially was reactionary Arab regimes turning their back on Palestine in exchange for having the transfer of capital between themselves and this ethno-state of so-called Israel. So I think the reason why they keep doing it, I mean, my facetious answer is that the Democrats are the party for people who hate politics. And like that. And this is, I mean, like their spokespeople. One last thing I'll say on this, you know, everybody's like looking to this dude Ro Khanna now, congressman from Silicon Valley. And it's like, why would I listen to someone speak about the issues impacting poor and working class people when the median house price in his district is $1.1 million?
Oh my
like,
gosh.
bro, like what do you say? What are you really going to say to a person who is struggling right now? You have 15 millions invested with Goldman Sachs, bro. And so, like, even the progressives, the so-called progressives, all are representing either districts. Pramila Jayapal, my old congresswoman in Seattle, were a family of four, Comrade Jackie, a family of four with a household income in Seattle of $170,000 is considered poverty.
Wow.
Like what?
What?
And so for Pramila to be like, we have to like, you know, invest more in poor and working people. You don't have any poor and working people in your district. They're gone. You know what I mean? Like, so what do you? So it's just, I think what they lack is, you know, definitely comms, but it's not genuine. It's just you don't believe them when they are saying this because we know that they've had trifectas before. Just like we can't believe them when they say they're serious about reproductive justice. They want Roe v. Wade because it's an issue they can fundraise off of. Just like they're never going to do anything about Citizens United. They want Citizens United because it's an issue that they can fundraise off of. And that's what it's become. I mean, they want Trump because it's an issue that they can fundraise off of.
That's right.
You know, and so I think that the combination of all of these things puts the party like where it is right now. And if it's not careful, it could go the way of the Whigs in the next, like, you know, 2 to 4 electoral cycles.
That's WHIGS for those of you who are not familiar with your political history, like us political and political history geeks are. Yes. Poli-sci nerds and history nerds. It's WHIGS. And you're going to have to look that up to see what happened to the Whigs because that's pretty funny.
It is. They became the Republicans.
Right. But then, of course, that creates a bunch of questions that nobody wants to get into right now, because then it's like, well, if that happens to the Democrats and they become the Republicans, then what do the Republicans become? And then see, this is why we need to have these conversations to be clear about where these people really are on the political spectrum, as opposed to where the people are. Because the ideological distortion of what the political spectrum in this country is has already happened, and it is so completely established and entrenched. I mean, Anthony just said that in Pramila Jayapal's district, $170,000 income is considered poverty. And that does not mean that really is the new poverty level in this country. What that means is the definition of poverty has been willfully manipulated and expanded to actually include rich people. And
that's right.
The economy is so skewed and messed up that, even people who make a little bit more money than we do, but not anybody that makes $170,000, Y'all, I don't care what anybody says. Anybody who is making $170,000, they ain't poor. They are not poor.
No.
They are not poor. But there are people who are making 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year because the economy is so terrible. Because eggs are crazy expensive, because milk is crazy expensive, because meat is crazy expensive. Yes, working class and poor people have a harder time affording to exist. But folks who make $170,000, no, they're not having a problem paying their rent, y'all. They're not having a problem paying their mortgage. And if they are, it's not my fault that they got a $2 million house. That's not my fault.
Yes.
They need to be more responsible and drink less Starbucks and eat less avocado toast. Isn't that what they've been telling? Isn't that what they've been telling actual poor people for the past decade? Yes, they have.
That's right.
Listen, we need to be clear about what we're talking about here, but we do have to take a quick break. And I do have to tell you all that my pledge board not moved. $400 to go. 1-800-222-9739, 202 588-9739. Anthony, how can people plug in?
I mean, first and foremost, WPFWFM.org, so that people can, in addition to donating, they can see the full roster of amazing programs, including yours, Darker Than Blue, my own, Full Spectrum. We got Comrade Netflix. We've got so many amazing music shows here in the family at WPFW. A special show that are amazing. Program director Katia started about, that's really in solidarity with the Palestinian people. And so that's just really the best place to start. Is WPFWFM.org. And then, I mean, when you come on to Full Spectrum, I always tell people, I put my phone number out there, although I've been advised maybe to stop doing that because of the fact that this is the type of conversations that you're not going to hear on mainstream media, and it could make people feel a certain way. So I might have to go back to the old school Google voice for that. But I just think that that's like a great place to start, because there are so many things you can do at once. You can donate so that we can reach our goal of $400 in this hour. And, that's also where we archive all of our shows. Really, really easy to download them and listen to them, because, sometimes, like you said, especially this time of year, folks are scrambling, right now, just in the traffic, getting food, family members who you may only see once a year for whatever reason, coming into town and whatnot, and gifts and all of that stuff. And so that's the first place to start, WPFWFM.org.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, this year, for the first time, you can donate by text. WPFWFM, text that to 801-801. $400 to go. About, what's that? 18 minutes to do it. It's still possible. It's funny, Anthony, I did, my church had its midweek service, our Bible study last night. We do ours on Thursday because, we're progressives. The UCC, United Congregational Church, is a progressive denomination. So we do things differently from the traditional. So we don't have Bible study on Wednesday. We have Bible study on Thursday because we're rebels. But we did a special midweek service on Palestine, where and it wasn't the first time. Ever since Abdus and I, my late husband, and I joined Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ in Washington, D.C. And of course, you all know that our friend, Reverend Graylin Hagler, is the pastor emeritus there. And I'm sure he's listening. I love you, Graylin. I'll be talking to you soon. But we had a fantastic discussion last night at a midweek service, and it's not the only time we've brought this issue and other political issues to the church. We have a whole board of social action, and I'm a member of that board. The board of social action is a member of the Black Alliance for Peace. I kind of snuck that in, but but we use the church for community events. We've had teach-ins. We've invited No Dutal, that are and organizations that are for ending the war in Korea to talk about that issue. We invited the Eritreans to come talk about Eritrean liberation. We invited the Cubans to come and talk about the sanctions against Cuba. So we're doing this work in our communities. In the coming year, we're planning to have people come and talk about why we need to focus on taking care of the planet as a part of our mandate as believers, as people of faith and all this kind of stuff. So we're connecting all of these issues that seem like they're disconnected, but we're showing the good, holy people of the church that no, not only are all these things connected, but you as a believer are responsible for addressing these things. That's your job. That's your mandate. Your mandate is not to run around and proselytize and save people's souls, because you can't. But your mandate is, to save people's lives, to fight for justice on behalf of the oppressed. That's literally in the book. So I say all that to say that, do you think that as revolutionaries in whatever field we are working in, do you think we have been paying enough attention to how to bring the climate discussion into our organization? Or is that something we need to work on better, particularly since, again, when we started this conversation a little while ago, the Biden administration came in making a bunch of promises about climate. That we're going to do all of this stuff to make an impact against climate change. And here we are in the alleged lame duck period, and major funds that were supposed to be allocated to an enormous climate initiative. Now these people are talking about they don't have their money. And so it looks like the Democrats have reneged on their climate promises. Are we well enough equipped, Anthony, to have this conversation with our people about why this is as important as Palestine, as important as Syria, as important as Cop City, as important as Haiti? Are we ready for this, or do we need to do better?
I mean, I think that we're very equipped to have this conversation, especially as people who subscribe to the Black radical tradition, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier in reference to identity politics. And what I mean by that is that when you think about it, a lot of our ancestors, Martin Luther King, the day before he was assassinated, he was in Memphis for an environmental justice issue, standing with striking Black sanitation workers who were being put on the dirtiest and most toxic routes. So it's really just sort of about like bringing it together. I think what has happened is that we have kind of given that discussion on climate mainly to liberals and neoliberals and larger well-funded organizations, some that were literally founded by white supremacists like John Muir, and letting us letting the petty bourgeois make us believe that climate and environmentalism is a white thing, as if like that isn't something, but we especially at BAP, and our discussion on militarism, ipso facto, we are talking about climate change. We all know that the biggest emitter and the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases and the biggest consumer of fossil fuels, single entity, is the United States military, right? We at BAP and you and I as individuals talk about the need for empire to end. It turns out empire maintenance is very, very bad for the climate, just like it is imperialism is as well. And I think that I especially with the way that we operate in formations like BAP, where we are not subjected to necessarily to foundations, because we know foundations are pulling their money as well from groups that take principled positions on things like Palestine and the Revolutionary Republic of Haiti. I'll send it to you later. A beautiful report just came out connecting the imperialism being experienced right now by our siblings in the Revolutionary Republic of Haiti and the climate crisis, and making case, therefore, for what some refer to as climate reparations. I think that No one is better. You mentioned our dear comrade, Erica Ryan. No one is better at Dr. CBS. I mean, we have the people who are equipped to make this a part of their larger political education, which is already brilliant. But I do think that we have to up what and really confront what I like to refer to as the iniquitous transmission of urgency. That this issue, this climate issue, specifically for Black folk, brown folk, poor folk, indigenous folk, we really have to in a way pry it away from the accommodationist. Any organization that claims to be a climate organization but is attached at the hip, no pun intended to Pelosi, attached at the hip to the Democrat Party, it cannot be taken seriously. When we're talking about the climate, you cannot have more allegiance and this is what we saw from a lot of these climate groups. They were more concerned with preservation of the Democrat Party than they were with preservation of the planet and people who live on it, which is why so many of them remain silent about the genocide and ethnic cleansing pogroms against the Palestinian people. Why they are cheering the fact that Bashar al-Assad was overthrown in obviously a Western-backed coup, right? I guess like the idea that the U.S. doesn't negotiate with terrorists. They're negotiating with HES right now. They lifted the $10 million bounty on the terrorists right now. And so I think it's just, as you said, making the connections. I mean, y'all brought me in on your political education that really made me understand this feckless war with Ukraine, but I understood it first and foremost as a fossil fueled war because like the U.S. destroyed, sabotaged the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is how Russia was delivering frack gas to all of Europe. And it used to be that our empire was situated in taking over resources. But now that the U.S. is the premier petrostate in the world, the biggest producer of frack gas and oil, now the empire is interested in consolidating markets because that's what this war is about. You know what I'm saying? They want to consolidate that European markets, right? And that's what it's become. So I do think I think we've done well. We have a lot of folk in BAP and more folk, but I think in 2025 we're really going to take that to another level. And last thing I'll say on this is that because it's also the issue of water. And I've said this to you before, if you draw a line from Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, the D, Chi-Town, and Milwaukee, these are 5 of the blackest cities north of the Mason-Dixon line. I'm talking like Cleveland, 40% black.
Right.
But the other thing that these cities all have in common is that they all sit on one of the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes now represent 20% of the world's remaining fresh water. 10 years ago, the Great Lakes were 15% of the world's remaining fresh water. That's gone up to 20 because of all the dissipation of freshwater availability. So we really, it's really just like, as we like to say about, we are at war. We have entered the epoch of class warfare. Whatever you want to say about Luigi Mangione, like that was like really the shot, and then the second shot heard around the world because it really you see that multiracial, multi-ethnic people coming together. That water situation is also a very big indication of why we have to embrace that idea that we're at war, because the reason why you have $170,000 households being considered poor is because the neoliberal and corporate class, they have no one left to extract from.
That's right. That's right. They've taken everything from the working class and the actual poor. Yes. We got nothing left. So of course, they're coming for you now. How else do y'all think this is going to work? You've heard the poem. You've heard it.
Yeah, I was just going to say it.
They came for those other people. Insert whatever group of people you are not, because the next line of the poem says, and I said nothing because I wasn't them. And then they came for another group of people that I'm not a part of. And I ain't say nothing because I wasn't them either. Then they came for the third group of people that I wasn't a part of. I ain't say nothing then either because I wasn't them. Right. Next thing I know, they're at my door. And I looked around for someone to defend me, and there was no one. So,
right. See, real quick, now I'm just having my Suge Knight moment for those folks.
Right.
You come to death row. Y'all got no choice. Go down to death row
Right.
and get in this struggle with us because like you are disposable and we got you. You're gonna have to go through some political education, but we got you.
Yeah, definitely got you. I mean, yeah, this is definitely a, we got to open the doors of the church wide open for everybody who wants to come in, and we got to have some serious conversations with some of these people when they do come in to help them understand. See, it didn't have to be this hard. They didn't have to come for you if you had just stepped out of line the first time they came for us.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, have to applaud you all because you all show off. I love y'all. Y'all are fantastic. We are at let's see, we've got a minute and a half left and we're gonna have to let this go. But Michael in Euless, Texas, I'm sorry, thank you, Euless, Texas, Riverdale, Maryland, Atlanta, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. Y'all, thank you so much. We only have $190 to go. $190 to go. We don't have to be on the air for you to pledge to Darker Than Blue. You can pledge to Darker Than Blue at any time you are able to pledge and that you want to pledge, and I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to stay tuned, to listen and call in to Garland Nixon on News Views, and then after that, so this is what I do on my Friday evenings. I don't know about y'all. When I don't do the extended show, I listen to Robin's Place. Because I love Robin's Place. I listen to Meeting in the Ladies' Room. I first listened to that show because I loved the title, and I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know if it was a talk show. I didn't know if it was music. I was like, Meeting in the Ladies' Room. Yes, I will. And the music is fantastic. I listen to Back to Paradise, and then on Saturday, WPFW is on all day from country soul in the morning to don't forget the blues in the early afternoon to hip hop collective. That come on, y'all, support WPFW. There is a little bit of something for everybody every time you turn this station on. We on this show, Darker Than Blue, we only have $190 to go. You can call and pledge to WPFW at any time. You can pledge to Darker Than Blue at any time. You can call. What's the number, Anthony?
Oh my gosh. What is the number? I'm so sorry.
588-9739, 202-588-9739. Cash App, $, WPFW FM, or you can donate by text. Yes, you can. You can text WPFW FM to 801-801. Anthony, what you doing in the next week?
I'm gonna be chilling with family and then getting ready to head down to Colombia. So I'll talk to you about that soon.
Absolutely. And we will talk to you all soon out there, dear listeners. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks, y'all,
for joining
my pleasure, sis.
Tonight. Stay tuned for News Views with Garland Nixon, Robin's Place, Meeting in the Ladies' Room, and Back to Paradise. Peace. If you're willing to fight. Woo, man. All right, y'all. A quick overtime. Just want to wish all of you a merry, a happy, a joyous, a blessed, whatever it is you celebrate, even if it's nothing, even if it's just, what day is Christmas? Wednesday? Even if it's just Wednesday for you. I want you to have the best, whatever it is you celebrate this year that you could possibly have. Because not just because I want you to have a great time and I want you to enjoy your family and your friends and whatever it is you do, whatever tradition you have, even if it's no tradition, even if your tradition is Chinese food and movies, enjoy it. Please do enjoy your New Year's, because January 3, I'll give you a day to nurse your hangover. That I'm going to do that for you because I love you. I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to give you a whole day to nurse that hangover. because January 3, I expect people to show the fuck up where we show the fuck up. We don't have any more time and we have no more patience. Okay, let me be honest. I have no more patience for people who talk a lot and do nothing. We are beyond the point of having endless, pointless conversations, answering endless, pointless, repeated questions that keep getting asked every time we come on and do a show. It's the same questions over and over again. We keep answering them. We keep doing the work, showing you what the answer is. We keep coming back on here doing the work, and we still get the same questions asked. We're beyond that now. We're in the middle of multiple genocides. The entire geopolitical landscape of the world is being reshaped right now. We have no more time or energy, to be honest, for continuing to engage in conversations that are not genuine, that are not productive, that are not presented in good faith, and that people are not going to follow up with any action. In 2025, it is get up, get organized, or get out of the way. Merry Christmas.